When Emily Carter, the fiercest liberal debater in her university, walked onto the stage, she believed her arguments were unshakable. She was ready to obliterate every opposing voice, but she had no idea that Barron Trump was about to give her the most devastating reality check of her life. Before we dive in, comment below where you're watching from. The debate hall was packed. Tension crackled in the air. Students from across the country had gathered for the most anticipated open debate session of the year. The rules were simple. Anyone could take the stage and present their argument, but anyone could challenge them. Emily adjusted the microphone, her purple hair matching her bold confidence. She flashed a smirk at the audience before speaking. "Fellow students," she began, her voice sharp and commanding, "we need to talk about the biggest problem in America, the outdated generations holding us back." A murmur spread through the audience. Some students leaned forward, intrigued. Others shifted uncomfortably. "Look around you," Emily continued. "Boomers, who can barely use a smartphone, still make the rules for our future. They cling to their precious faith, their so-called patriotism, their rigid family values. But their America is dead, and it's time we bury it." Thunderous applause erupted. From the third row, a tall, composed young man sat motionless. Most didn't recognize him at first, but those who did, they held their breath. It was Barron Trump. Emily, emboldened by the cheers, pushed further. "What we need," she declared, "is an age limit on political participation. Why should people who won't even be here in 30 years have a say in our future? We need real progress. It's time to shut them out." The audience erupted in cheers. Some students even stood, chanting her name. The moderator, Professor Harrison, stepped forward. "Would anyone like to present a counter-argument?" Silence. Emily crossed her arms, smirking. No one would dare. And then, a deep, calm voice cut through the noise. "I would." The room froze. All eyes turned to Barron Trump as he rose from his seat. He wasn't smiling. Emily's smirk widened. "Well, well," she said into the mic, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Daddy's boy wants to defend his boomer buddies." Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Barron didn't react. He adjusted the microphone, his movements slow, deliberate. "Thank you, Emily," he said. His voice was steady, measured, dangerous. "You're passionate. I respect that. But passion without wisdom?" He tilted his head slightly. "That's a loaded gun with no aim." Emily's smile flickered. "You say the older generations are useless?" Barron continued. "Tell me, who built the technology you used to research this argument?" Emily opened her mouth, but Barron kept going. "Your iPhone? Created by people over 50. The university where you stand right now, built by them. The freedoms that let you say whatever you want, defended by them." The audience leaned in. Even Emily's supporters were listening now. "You claim their values are outdated." Barron's voice took on a steely edge. "Values like hard work, personal responsibility, sacrificing for the next generation." Emily rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Barron. They built their wealth on privilege and oppression." Barron raised an eyebrow. "Really? Let's test that theory." He stepped closer. "Elon Musk? Over 50. Bill Gates? Over 60. The scientists curing cancer? Most are boomers. My father? 78. Should we dismiss all their contributions because of their age?" Emily scoffed. "Oh, how touching," she sneered. "You conveniently name billionaires, the elite 1%, while regular Americans struggle?" Barron smiled slightly. "Ah, when facts don't fit your narrative, you shift the argument." The crowd murmured. Emily's voice rose. "And what about your father's values? The ones that divide families, force outdated religious beliefs down our throats?" "Interesting," Barron interrupted smoothly. "You preach tolerance while mocking people's faith. You claim to fight discrimination while calling for millions of Americans to be silenced. Emily's face flushed. Let me ask you something, Emily. Barron's voice was calm but piercing. How many hours have you spent helping others? Emily blinked. That's not because I've spent years volunteering at veteran shelters, Barron continued. People who bled for this country. People you just called dinosaurs. Silence. Emily's supporters shifted uncomfortably. You stand here, Barron said, demanding progress while repeating the oldest mistake in history, believing wisdom belongs to one generation. Emily's hands gripped the podium. You call yourself inclusive, Barron continued, yet you mock, dismiss, and try to silence anyone who doesn't fit your worldview. That's not progress. That's tyranny. The room was completely still. Emily opened her mouth, but no words came out. Barron's voice softened, but it carried more weight than ever. You claim to fight for the future, but real progress doesn't come from burning bridges. It comes from building them. With quiet confidence, Barron stepped back from the podium and returned to his seat. Emily stood there, alone. Professor Harrison hesitated. Would you like to respond? Emily's shoulders slumped. She stepped back. No, she muttered, voice barely audible. Then she quickly left the auditorium. Later that evening, as students filed out, Emily saw Barron packing his things. Heart pounding, she hesitated, then approached. Barron. Her voice was small. He turned. To her shock, his face held no anger. Could I talk to you for a second? She asked. Barron nodded. Of course, she swallowed hard. I was wrong. About a lot of things. I was so focused on proving my point that I never even thought about listening. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Barron studied her for a moment, then smiled. You know what's funny? He said. Every generation thinks they know everything. Then eventually, they realize how much they had to learn. Emily blinked. Something about those words hit deep. Maybe it's time we stop talking and start listening, she murmured. Barron nodded. Maybe it is. And with that, a debate that started in division ended in understanding. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. God bless America.